Untrustworthy.
Solve the World. A fictional adventure told in 100 episodes. Episode 36. Connections. Hours after touching down in Zurich, Switzerland, Jenn held in her hand something she'd never had before. A cell phone. She also had a new hand, but Jennifer had previously already had a hand attached to that wrist, so the new replacement was not quite as awe-inducing as the mobile phone. After Lilith and everyone sans Roger and Jennifer exited the plane in Budapest, the jet rerouted to Zurich. Once on the ground in Switzerland, Roger escorted Jenn immediately to what looked like a hole in the wall amidst the otherwise gorgeous Swiss town. There really wasn't much to it. Roger and Jennifer bid their time maybe an hour in a drab waiting room. 2 TVs in the room both had the Nicolas Cage action flick Face Off on mute. Jenn had never seen the film and found the plot rather difficult to track without any sound. A nurse came in to have Jenn fill out some paperwork. She handed Jenn a clipboard, but Roger immediately snatched it out of Jenn's hands, filling out pages upon pages of forms and finding answers to the questions asked on his smartphone. Finally, the nurse asked Jenn, in English, to follow her. She escorted Jenn through a long hallway and plopped her down in an even smaller room that did indeed have a TV, but unfortunately no face-off. The nurse ordered Jenn to remove her clothes, put on a hospital gown, and wait some more. Jenn did, and noticed as she waited that her paper-thin gown had unicorns dancing all over it. Jenn reminisced about the fast food joint where she first overheard the rabbi explaining the existence of unicorns to her daughters. The nurse came back, took a blood sample from Jenn, asked her to stand on a scale, and finally noted Jenn's pulse. After that, the nurse left, but returned within a minute. "This is Dr. Nanamudi. He'll be your anesthesiologist today." "Hello, Jennifer." "Hi. I'm going to inject this into you." The doctor held up a needle. "Are you scared of needles?" "No, sir. Not really." "Good." He stabbed her. "Please count back for me from 10. 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Jenn woke up in a bathtub filled with ice cubes. From her elbow all the way down was a white cast. She was freezing in the ice water, but her cast arm was bent outside the tub and thus dry. At the very end of the cast, bluish, purplish, blackish fingertips protruded out. A new nurse waited outside the tub to comfort Jenn and tell her the surgery was a success. In retrospect, it was rather odd how little Jenn knew about everything that went on. She was never told why she awoke from surgery in a bathtub, never given any sort of details about the procedure at all. But there appeared to be evidence in the form of oddly colored, bruised fingertips that Jennifer Dash was rejoining the world of the two-handed. For the next several days, however, no extra evidence mounted. Her fingers remained unnaturally colored, and she didn't seem to have any control or feeling of her new appendage at all. As Jenn left the office, she was given a few specific instructions. Roger had left, but he'd taken the liberty of checking Jenn into a motel just 3 blocks from the doctor's office. Apparently, Roger had delivered Jenn's things there. Most importantly, The nurse commanded Jenn to return to the office in 5 days. On her return, they'd knock her out again, open the cast, check up on the new hand, and recast it before Jenn would wake up. Jenn asked why it was necessary that she sleep through the procedure. The nurse responded by saying that it was absolutely crucial that Jenn not move her arm or hand during this process. The only way to ensure no movement was to put Jenn to sleep. That explanation made sense, but Jenn wondered if it didn't have more to do with making sure Jennifer never saw the surgeon's face. Jennifer was also on strict orders to never get her arm wet. The nurse packed with Jenn an ugly plastic sleeve she was to wear anytime Jenn took a shower. Complete immersion underwater was absolutely off limits. Beyond the bounds entirely. Anyway, that was all old hat. The thing now was the cell phone, and what it possibly meant. Jenn had wandered the pavilions of Zurich by foot, by trolley, and by water bus, looking for ways to utilize her unlimited black credit card in the days following her procedure. Jenn had never been the type of girl enamored with clothes and fashion, but Zurich was fancy, and Jenn wanted to fit in. She bought several ensembles, including a full-length powder blue gown, the likes of which suited Cinderella much more than the arm-casted Jennifer. After a perusal through an Armani boutique and subsequent purchasing of a blinging gold-chained purse, whose price tag was a whopping 1,200 euros, by far the most expensive thing Jenn had ever purchased or owned in her life, the thought arose in Jenn's mind that she needed something to go inside her ornate arm candy. And speaking of arm candy, it just so happened that the first store Jenn passed after this thought was indeed a candy store. And so it came to pass that Jennifer Dash came to fill her Armani purse with fancy lollipop suckers. Growing up, Jenn was not often given the opportunity to snack on candies of pretty much any sort, but when the rare occasion came, she chose lollipops almost exclusively. They lasted the longest. On a few early occasions, Jenn's neighbor, Red Jeb, came over and gave her Twix bars, but the momentary glee that such an intoxicating sugar, chocolate, and caramel rush brought forth was quickly and viciously erased by the fact that the Twix was gone so darn fast. It seemed like a cruel trick, to enjoy something so much, only to have it be gone just as swiftly as it came. So here in Zurich, Jenn's inner girl chose lollipops, a whole bag full of them, to suck on and enjoy all the livelong day. As a child, Jenn wouldn't stop once the Tootsie Pop itself was eaten. She'd go right along sucking on the paper handle, sucking every last ounce of pleasure from the experience, until, at final last, the paper too dissolved away and there was nothing left to suck on. Jenn was working on a latte-flavored pop when she purchased the phone. She'd never owned a phone before, and she wasn't entirely even sure how to use one. But the idea festered in Jenn's mind that there were 2 people she would call if she found the right digits. So, with ample time on her hands, Jennifer Dash purchased one. A half hour later, she found at an internet cafe the very 2 numbers she was hoping to obtain. The first was much easier to find. The working office number of Miles Faw. Jenn had hoped that maybe he'd been saved in the last days. Maybe Lex led the remainder of the Orion to Pishtako's Island, the Numbered Man's Island, Clovis's Island, 666's Island, whatever that crazy monster called himself. His island. Maybe Lex had already saved Miles. Maybe now he was already safe and sound. Or maybe he had saved himself somehow. Maybe he used his mental telepathy to get out of the grotesque marriage contract. Or maybe he just beat the snot out of every hedgie until they let him go. Who knows? But the peace it would bring, knowing Miles was okay. Jenn was living with shame and anger, frustration. She didn't want to be the girl that had left her colleague behind. She didn't want to carry that burden. As long as he was still there, held in captivity, the burden would remain heavy. If Miles was out, though, Jenn was free. Free once more. Jennifer free. Jennifer free. One simple call and it could all be put to rest. The second number was a bit trickier. There were no computers in Jenn's home growing up, so the internet and social media remained something of an anomaly to Jenn. She felt pretty secure in her ability to relate to her environments, to mold herself and be charming in whatever environs the world threw at her. But she knew she lacked the mobile skills of her generation. It was the one glaring big old gap in her development. Nevertheless, with the help of a nerdy guy at the internet cafe, Jenn found Atticus's number online and saw his face once more. What would she say if she called him? What would they talk about? How could she explain how much Atticus had come to mean to her? How could she do that without coming off like a boy-obsessed weirdo? For goodness sake, they'd spent one evening together. This would take some thought. One couldn't just walk into that phone call. It required a high degree of forethought. Jenn's conversation with the one and only Atticus Further had to be premeditated. She would think through every possibility. Every question Atticus could conceivably ask, she'd have anticipated it. She was not going to be a floozy. She needed to come off self-confident, calm, cool, collected. Was there some way that she could manipulate Atticus into calling her first? If Gimli was around, that postman Goal, she'd have him surreptitiously drop her number off at his house. Or better yet, the convenience store when only Atticus was working. How cool would that be if this big old Goal waddles in through the automatic sliding doors, only to deliver a message for Jenn's boy wonder? That'd be romantic, no? Building off of that fantasy, Jenn envisioned Atticus calling her, Jenn acting nonchalant about the whole thing, Jenn twirling her hair. It of course wasn't long enough in the slightest to be twirled now, but this was a fantasy, so Jenn imagined herself as she was when she first met Atticus, long-haired, two-handed, and castless. They talked for hours while Jenn meandered through the beautiful streets of Zurich at dusk. She described to him in detail everything she was seeing, touching, tasting, while he'd laugh and add his geeky knowledge of Swiss history as insight into the conversation. She'd continue to talk as she prepped herself for bed at the motel, but it would be completely apparent to both that neither wanted to hang up. Finally, as the sun would crest over the horizon, Jenn would yawn, and Atticus would suddenly, in a vibrant burst of inspiration, announce that he was going to take the red-eye to Zurich. He'd be at the airport before the sun set on this new day. Then Jennifer would go to meet him at the airport. He'd come off the plane with a teddy bear in one hand and a dozen roses in the other, but when he finally sees her, he drops everything, sprints over to her, caresses her face in his hands, and kisses her. That moment would never die. It'd never age. They'd stick there, eternal fixtures of united love in the Zurich airport, until the sun turned dim at the end of time. All this, the only thing Jenn needed to figure out was how to get a hold of Gimli. It was so simple if only she had Gimli. This very daydream kept Jenn afloat for days. If nowhere else, Jennifer Dash could live there, in the little fantasy she'd so carefully constructed. It was big enough for her. She could live there. It was there, then, in the midst of Europe, that Jenn found a world of her own making, a sham reality much worthier of her time than the real world. Solving the world was proving perilous and impossible. Why not just journey off into a place of make-believe? It was now Sunday morning and Jenn was due back at the secretive surgeon's office. For whatever reason, Jenn had been waking up earlier and earlier each morning in Zurich. She wasn't conscious of it, but the reason was this. With nothing to do, with no immediate cause grappling for Jenn's attention these days, Jenn found that fantasizing about Atticus was a hobby more intoxicating than sleep. But this morning was proving to be a little different. It was probably due to paranoia about the doctor's visit itself. Jenn's thoughts on Atticus kept swimming away from the Pelican State, away from the darling of her dreams, towards the thing attached to the end of Jennifer's arm. It had been 5 days, and she still couldn't feel it, at all. And it looked dead, all blue and purple and black. It reminded Jenn of the way people looked in movies after they turned into zombies. Was her new hand a zombie hand? What if it attacked her in her sleep? What if it had the infection, the known triangle infection, the rabies-like disease? So, at 6:15 a.m. Zurich time, Jenn dialed out. She wasn't sure exactly of the math, but she figured it had to be the middle of the night at Faw's office. If someone answered, that person would be less likely to be some receptionist with a pre-programmed response concerning the whereabouts of the venerable Miles Faw. Hello? Hello, hi. I'm calling for Miles Faw. He's not taking any clients at this time. Yeah, I'm aware of that, I know. Jenn faltered. She knew so much. What was safe to divulge? I'm an associate that planned on joining him on the Orion adventure schooner, but I was unable to join the ship's crew. I thought maybe Faw would be back by now. Excuse me, who is this? I work for Lilith Babbitt. Miles Faw's dead. Jenn couldn't believe it. Dial again. No answer. Hang up. Try again. No answer. Hang up. Try again. Rinse, repeat. Jenn refused to let any thoughts in. Just rinse. Repeat. Stop calling! I want to know for sure! Jenn yelled. For sure? Who are you? I just need to know! Jenn's voice was too loud. What do you want from me? Who are you? I'm Faw's girlfriend. What was Faw's girlfriend? Would you please leave me alone? Miles had never mentioned a girlfriend. Not once. He never wrote anyone on the boat. Never made a phone call. Never talked about any girl while they waited in the hole. Nothing. I don't believe you. Miles is dead, and he had a girlfriend. The revelation should have devastated Jenn. Her burden of guilt should have increased tenfold. But Jennifer Dash refused to believe it, refused to believe any of it. Miles wasn't dead, and he didn't have a girlfriend. It wasn't true. It wasn't true. It wasn't true. Those thoughts stuck swirling around in Jenn's mind. She went to the doctor. Her appointment was for 9 a.m. She strolled in maybe 10 minutes late. The TV showcased on this Sunday morning Nicolas Cage's bomb of a horror remake, The Wicker Man. Once again, sans audio. They put some sort of cage of bad CGI'd bees over Nick's head. He probably was screaming, but Jenn had to smirk. Without the sound, it kind of looked like Nick Cage was shouting for joy. He was so happy to try on that bee helmet. I like bees, said the only other soul in the waiting room. A little woman who looked to be the size of a large doll, but had the face of a 70-year-old. Excuse me? I said I like bees. Oh, good, Jenn said, trying not to sound patronizing. Do I know something? Is it about bees? One of the nurses stole a little boy. What? I heard her, in English, say there's a missing boy. Oh, okay. And the way she talked, I can tell she stole him. How can you tell? I'm telepathic. Really? Yes. I know you miss your boyfriend, and you don't like your job. Jenn didn't have a boyfriend. She didn't have a job. She pulled a sucker out of her purse, this one key lime pie flavor, and jammed it down her throat, trying to non-verbally signal that she wasn't interested in having this conversation. Don't you think you should do something? Jenn didn't want to respond, so she didn't. I said, don't you think you should do something? Jenn crunched down on her sucker. She immediately regretted it as it shattered into 1,000 tiny candy swords in her mouth. I said, don't you think you should do something? Listen to me! The persistent question broke Jenn down. What am I supposed to do? Investigate. Why me? Why not you? Clipboard in stride, the nurse receptionist walked in. Jennifer Dash? Yes, that's me, Jennifer said with relief. Within a few minutes, Jenn was knocked out, floating in a dreamless void. She awoke, glad to discover this time she was not floating in an ice bath. A nurse stood beside her. Okay, Jennifer. Everything looks good. We expect you back Friday, 9 a.m. Is there a lost boy somewhere? The haze of the anesthesia was still clearing. Oh, I'm not Lara. Lara? One of the other nurses. Her nephew is the one who's missing. Can I maybe speak to her? The not Lara nurse escorted Jenn to another small room. I'll get her. As soon as she's available, she'll come and visit. Jenn didn't have to wait long. Yes, I'm Lara. Hi, I'm Jennifer. I heard about your nephew from one of the other patients. I was just wondering if maybe there's something I can do? You're Lilith Babbitt's friend, yes? Yeah, I guess so. She sent you here. Yeah. Did she tell you to talk to me about this? No, really, I don't really even know what's going on. I'm here for these 6 weeks and I don't have anything to do, so I thought maybe I could pass out flyers or something? I don't know. Meet me at Shamrock. Tonight, 10 p.m. Shamrock? The Irish pub. Jenn waited around the rest of the day. She went into town, thought about shopping, but mostly just walked around. She did end up buying a pink skin cover for her phone, however. Arriving at the Shamrock about an hour early, Jenn ordered a shepherd's pie. She didn't like it, and then just waited around for Lara. Lara came 5 minutes early, ordered a stout beer, and held an iPad up in front of her eyes. I'm from Liechtenstein. My little sister married the mayor of Vaduz, our capital city. He owns several hotels in the country. My sister, she didn't want to be just a mayor's wife, so she continued to work at one of the mayor's hotels. She died last year, found in the back room of the hotel, the room where they kept the safe. They say she died of an acute, sudden, spontaneous asphyxiation. I've always wondered. My sister had a son before she married the mayor. Robin. He is 8 years old. Here is what the newspaper said. I'll translate as I read. Yesterday, in Eschen, a man was found in the Hotel Eschen that had apparently suffered from sudden asphyxiation. Of note, this morning, a boy, Robin, was reported missing. This boy, Robin, is the stepson of the mayor and was spending time at the hotel visiting a friend. Currently, there is no indication that the asphyxiation is linked to the boy's disappearance. That was 3 days ago. They are calling him the lost boy of Liechtenstein. Everyone's looking for him, but he can't be found. This is what the paper said this morning. The manager of the Hotel Eschen had asked Robin to spy on the man who later was found asphyxiated. The manager thought the man was suspicious, so he paid young Robin to hide in the man's closet. No word yet on whether the hotel manager will be prosecuted for child endangerment. Meanwhile, voices are rising that the mayor of Vaduz should be prosecuted for criminal neglect, as he had no idea where his stepson was on the night of his disappearance, despite the mayor being his stepfather. Lara dropped her voice just above a whisper. I think Robin found out something. Maybe he found out who killed my sister. I think he's hiding, and I think he's hiding because the mayor is the one to blame. Wait, you think the mayor of this town, Vaduz, killed your sister, his wife, and then a year later randomly killed some other dude? And your nephew found out, so he's in hiding? You know Lilith Babbitt. I'd like to ask you for her help. I believe I know where Robin is. Where? My sister and I. We grew up very poor. Our parents died on a trip. We were raised by our grandparents.
They were very mean, and they didn't feed us much. We didn't have much to play with or much to eat, so we hunted in the sewers. Even after we had food and welfare, we still went down there. It was like this big secret world her and I had. I think maybe my sister taught Robin about our adventures.
You think he's in the sewers?
Where else could he be?
Jenn left the Shamrock perplexed. She wanted to help Lara. She wanted to do something good for a change. But she really didn't know how to help. For one thing, although she had Babbitt's credit card, she didn't actually have a way of contacting her favorite millionaire. Roger left her without a word on how to reach out to Lilith. Secondly, Robin, the lost boy of Liechtenstein, he was supposedly in the sewers? Jenn had already had a long adventure in the sewers under Los Angeles, the working space of the Patriot. She wasn't exactly riveted to go back down into the underworld. Jenn couldn't sleep that night. Thoughts of the lost boy of Liechtenstein and the hot and bothered girlfriend of dead Miles Faw kept bobbing up to the surface. The call now was once again upon Jennifer Dash to be a woman of action. She couldn't bear to be alone with her thoughts. So, she dialed a number. It rang for what seemed an eternity, and then, finally, like fresh air after years of holding one's breath. Yeah, hello, Atticus. Yeah, who's this? It's Jenn. Jenn Dash. Oh my gosh, Jenn? How are you? Where are you? I'm in Switzerland. Wow, Switzerland. Your adventures have really taken you far. How'd you get this number? I looked you up. I don't know, the internet or something. Oh, okay. I thought you didn't know how to use the internet. Well, yeah, I've learned a lot since we last talked. I bet. Hey, look, is this your number? Yeah? So, you're calling me from your own phone, not someone else's? Oh, right, yeah. This is mine. Okay, cool, great. I'm gonna save your name in my phone, but, can I call you back later? Oh, yeah, sorry, I'd really love to catch up, really. But, I'm at this recital thing, and it's gonna start, like, any minute. Recital? Yeah, it's like a piano thing. My girlfriend's little brother's thing, oh, yeah. Sorry, I know that's, sorry, I feel a little awkward. Can I call you back? I really would love to talk more, but... Oh, but they're dimming the lights. I gotta go. Oh, okay. Okay, bye. Great to hear from you, Jenn. Great to hear your voice. Great to hear your voice, too. Solve the World is produced by myself, Dante Stack. All of the sound effects and music you hear have been taken off of Creative Commons websites. Full attribution is given to the songs and sound effects on our show notes page at dantestack.com. Okay, everybody, since we started this podcast, we've been giving away free stickers to anyone who's willing to write a review for us on iTunes. We'll send them to you in the mail. However, a word of warning, I am running out. I plan to do other giveaways in the future, but probably not any more stickers. So if you're a sticker file, if you gotta get you some stickers, get that review in quickly, cause it's not gonna be much longer now. Alright? Take care. The lost boy of Liechtenstein needs to be found. Miles Faw and Atticus Further have already been reached, have been taken care of. Little Robin alone in the sewers, that's where Jenn needs to spend her energy. Next week, Jenn puts herself in the very middle of our high-stakes drama already in full swing. That's next time on Solve the World.